There were names that once shook an entire city and then vanished as if they had never existed. 3 years ago, that name was Claire Donovan. She had been the youngest investigative journalist ever to win the New York Press Award, the fresh wind of the media world. Claire's articles forced the powerful to reveal their faces, making the whole city listen. But tonight, under the crystal chandeliers of the Astoria Hotel, Claire was nothing more than an anonymous waitress. In a dark uniform, with a heavy tray of wine in her hands, she moved quietly among the dazzling tuxedos and gowns. In their eyes, she was nothing but a shadow. She had learned how to exist like that. Until that moment. In the VIP row, an elderly woman lifted her head and looked around. Her eyes were bright but lost, her hand moving slightly, fingers trembling as if trying to say something no one understood. Amidst the soft music and the clinking of glasses, everyone ignored her. Claire stopped. Then, almost instinctively, her hands began to sign, each movement smooth, fluent, like a second language. The woman froze, and then her lips curved into a gentle smile. The smile of someone who had just found the doorway out of a silent world. And right then, the gaze of the man sitting next to her fell upon Claire. Nathaniel Blackwell, CEO of Blackwell Group. A man who could make the entire media world shift with a single nod. He could not look away, not out of cheap curiosity, nor out of pity. But because he knew instantly the young waitress was anything but ordinary. Claire felt that gaze, but she did not turn back. She knew well. Looks from the powerful usually brought trouble rather than fortune. She kept walking, her figure blending into the lively crowd. But Claire did not know. That single moment, which seemed so accidental, would pull her back into the world she had once sworn to leave forever. Claire had just managed to set the empty tray down on the bar when the sharp sound of hurried footsteps came from behind. The shift manager, a man with graying hair and thin glasses always perched on the bridge of his nose, appeared, his voice low and clipped like an order. "The VIP guest at table 3 wants to see you." Claire's heart sank. At the Astoria Hotel, a private invitation from a VIP guest rarely ended well. Serving the usual guests was already pressure enough, but being singled out usually marked the beginning of things she never wished for. Refusal was not an option. She drew a deep breath, straightened her apron, adjusted her shoulder straps. She reminded herself, just a few minutes, be polite, then disappear. As she had done for the past 3 years. Nathaniel Blackwell was already standing, waiting. Tall, broad-shouldered, his sharp features burnished by the golden glow of the lights. He radiated a look both refined and unreadable. His gaze was unlike that of the other guests, neither clouded by wine nor restless in pursuit of gowns sweeping past. It was steady, deep, as though reading an open page. Claire remained composed, bowed her head slightly. "Mr. Blackwell, do you need anything else, sir?" Nathaniel did not extend his glass, nor order more wine. Instead, his voice, low and resonant, cut clearly through the noise. "Thank you for helping my mother. Not many here know sign language." Claire faltered for an instant, but quickly nodded, her voice even, striving to keep distance. "It was just part of my job, sir. I learned a little to support guests." Nathaniel tilted his head slightly, his eyes seeming to search every fine detail of her face. He spoke slowly, each word pressed like weight upon the air. "No. The way you signed wasn't that of a beginner. It was fluent. Too fluent." Behind her back, Claire's hand clenched tight, fingers icy cold. Her heart pounded, yet her face maintained a polite smile. "Mr. Blackwell, if you need anything further, I'll inform the manager right away." A silence fell. Amid the music and laughter, he set his glass down on the table, his eyes locking onto her. Then his voice dropped, sharp as a blade slicing the air. Claire Donovan. I am not mistaken. The blood in Claire's body seemed to drain into a single point. That name, the name she had worked tirelessly to bury for 3 years, had just rung out, clear, in a room full of curious eyes. She pressed her lips together, gripped the tray tight, forced out a stiff smile. You're mistaken. I'm only a waitress here. Nathaniel did not argue. From his breast pocket, he drew a silver-embossed card and placed it on the table between them. His voice was calm, firm, sounding like a promise already written. If one day you wish to talk, call me, because the truth never stays buried forever. Claire did not touch the card. She bowed, stepped back, and turned away. When she returned to the bar, the hand hidden inside her apron pocket trembled with each beat. For 3 years, she had done everything to vanish from this city's map. Yet with just one gaze, one spoken name, the entire wall of defenses inside her began to quake, as if ready to collapse. From afar, Nathaniel sat upright. His eyes followed Claire's figure dissolving into the elegant crowd, steady, certain. He had found a secret, and he was not the kind of man to give up once he began solving a riddle. As for Claire, when she bent down to wipe a few drops of wine off the bar counter, she knew one thing for certain. Tonight, the past she had buried had been called by name, and it would not rest easily again. 2 days later, New York was veiled in drizzle. A thin curtain of water draped over the streets like a gray screen. Neon lights bled their colors into the puddles on the sidewalks, making the city look like a smudged painting. Passers-by hurried by, umbrellas pressed low, footsteps urgent as if trying to escape the cold sting of the rain. Claire pulled her thin coat tighter and stepped into a small cafe near the train station, the place she often retreated to on days without a shift. The atmosphere here was nothing like the grand hotel ballrooms. Raw brick walls, scratched wooden tables, leather chairs worn soft with age. From an old speaker, the faint strains of jazz filtered through the rain, sounding both warm and sad. She chose a seat by the window, set down a steaming cup of coffee, its mist blurring her distant eyes. Claire opened a small notebook, the only thing left that reminded her of her days as a journalist, and tried to write a few scattered lines. Not for anyone else to read, but only to remind herself that she had once had a voice, had once written words that made the entire city listen. She told herself it was only a coincidence, a glance, a name spoken, and it would pass, like so many times before. But her heart refused to obey. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that cold, gray gaze again, the eyes of Nathaniel Blackwell, piercing as if they could shatter the walls she had built. The soft chime of the doorbell rang. Claire didn't need to look up. Her heart already missed a beat. He walked in. Nathaniel Blackwell, a long black coat still traced with raindrops, a folded umbrella in his hand. His eyes swept the cafe, then stopped at the window. Meeting Claire's gaze, the corner of his mouth curved faintly, not in triumph, not in mockery, but as if to say, "I know you're here." Claire exhaled softly and closed her notebook. She could have stood, could have walked away, as she had done for the past 3 years. But this time her body refused. Perhaps she was simply too tired of running. Nathaniel approached, his steps calm, unhurried. He sat across from her without waiting to be invited. The yellow light fell across his face, highlighting a composed, almost chilling stillness. "This time," he began, his voice light but sharp as a fine blade. "You can't say you were just a passing waitress." Claire shut her eyes for a moment, her heart pounding, but her voice held its strained composure. "What do you want?" Nathaniel didn't answer immediately. He drew his phone from his pocket, placed it on the table and turned the screen toward her. On it was an old newspaper headline, with Claire's picture in clear focus. Claire Donovan exposes financial scandal in Queens. The photo from 3 years ago stared back at her. A young face, bright, determined eyes, a rare smile caught in front of the camera. That girl had once been hailed as the voice of justice. What do I want? Nathaniel's brow lifted slightly. I want to know why someone who once changed an entire city had to disappear as if she never existed. The question landed on the worn wooden table, heavier than any report Claire had ever published. She tightened her grip on the coffee cup, its heat searing her palms, reminding her that she still existed, still sat here. But her lips froze, unable to form words. In Nathaniel's eyes, she saw something more dangerous than curiosity: resolve. Once he had found a riddle, he would not stop until every layer was stripped away. Claire turned her face toward the window, watching the rain streak into long silver lines. Outside, the city bustled on, oblivious to the name that had once shaken it. But inside, the past she had buried sat right across from her, in the form of a man who never let the truth rest. For the first time in 3 years, Claire could not walk away. A heavy silence settled over the cafe table. Only the faint jazz from the old speaker and the steady tapping of rain on the glass filled the space, drop by drop, as if counting down Claire's time. She turned the rim of her coffee cup, her gaze fixed on the dark, rippling surface. If she stared long enough, perhaps Nathaniel's question would dissolve on its own. But once spoken, a question like that could never be taken back. Claire gave a faint smile, fragile, without the slightest trace of joy. Her voice came out hoarse, low, as though it had just emerged from a storm that had drained all her breath. You don't know anything. Nathaniel leaned forward, his eyes never leaving her. His voice was deep, firm, like a verdict. Then tell me. Claire looked up for a brief moment, hazel eyes flashing a warning. Not a challenge, but a reminder. Don't dig deeper. You won't be able to bear it. But Nathaniel did not look away. In his gray gaze there was only cold determination. She sighed, her small shoulders trembling slightly, then shook her head. If truth still had any worth, I wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't be wearing an apron, carrying trays of wine, living like a shadow just to avoid being recognized. Nathaniel pressed each word, strong but not harsh, as though stating an undeniable fact. You once wrote things that made an entire city stop. Someone like that doesn't disappear just because of a headwind. Claire let out a broken laugh, tinged with bitterness. She turned toward the window, watching the streetlights shatter in the rain. Her voice dropped, like telling a story no one would ever believe. A headwind? Sometimes it's not just wind, it's a tornado. It can break everything: career, reputation, even the things you thought were strongest. The silence returned. Only the faint clink of a spoon against a glass at the next table remained. Nathaniel still watched her, saying nothing, but his silence weighed heavier than any accusation. At last Claire drew a deep breath, her fingers trembling faintly on the cup. There are people, too powerful for you to ever touch, and I forgot that before it was too late. Nathaniel tilted his head, his voice dropping low, hard as sharpened steel. Who are they? Tell me their names. Claire turned back, pain flaring briefly in her eyes before fading. Her voice was cold as frosted glass, allowing no crack to slip through. You don't want to know. With that, Claire stood. The wooden chair creaked, louder than her weary sigh. She left behind her unfinished cup of coffee, then turned and walked out. Nathaniel remained seated, his eyes following her figure disappearing beyond the rain-streaked doorway. He understood that Claire had just revealed enough to confirm a great secret was buried. But at the same time, she had slammed the door shut, forcing him to seek the rest on his own. And Nathaniel Blackwell, the man who had never let go of a single truth, made his decision. He would not allow her to vanish again. Night fell over New York heavy as a thick curtain draped across the city. In the top-floor office of Blackwell Group, only the blue glow of a computer screen lit Nathaniel Blackwell's tense face. He had been sitting there for hours. Before him lay half-open files, dozens of browser windows stacked together. The name Claire Donovan typed again and again, but the results returned empty. Old news links showed only page not found. Archives that once existed in online databases were now replaced with blank white squares. Even the printed newspaper records preserved in the city library, once untouchable, had vanished without a trace. Nathaniel drummed his fingers against the desk, eyes darkening. He dialed a number, calling Miles, his trusted associate and data analyst. "Anything new?" His voice was low and steady. On the other end, Miles sighed, clearly drained after hours of digging. "Nothing left, Nate. Every witness Claire ever quoted has withdrawn their statements. Her email accounts are wiped clean. Every trace of those articles is gone as if they never existed. Whoever did this worked with a precision that chills the bones." Nathaniel fell silent. His eyes flickered with calculation, as if piecing together fragments of a shadowed puzzle. At last he ground out, "Dig through cache, hidden backups, system logs. I don't need the whole picture, just a shard. Anything." The call ended. The office sank back into silence, broken only by the ticking clock, each notch a reminder that time was not on his side. The next morning, Claire stepped into the same cafe. She looked more worn than ever, dark circles beneath her eyes. Her coat was rumpled, her frame shrunken as if the storms had devoured her. She sat across from Nathaniel without a word, placing a crumpled envelope on the table. "In my home mailbox," Claire rasped, her voice raw as if she hadn't slept all night. "No one knows that address, but they still found it." Nathaniel opened the envelope. Inside was a folded slip of paper. The handwriting was rushed, uneven, but its message froze the air between them. "Don't dig it up. This time will be worse." He looked up, his eyes sharp as steel, voice firm. "They know where you are." Claire gave a thin laugh, empty of joy. "You think I don't know? For 3 years, they've tracked my every step. I've lived like a shadow just to keep breathing." Nathaniel set the note down, gaze never leaving her. "Then how long do you plan to stay silent?" She avoided his eyes, both hands wrapped around the hot coffee cup. The heat pressed into her skin, but it couldn't steady the tremor inside. Her voice cracked, laced with exhaustion and bitterness. "You don't know what they can do. They erase every trace. The only witness who ever helped me vanished overnight." Nathaniel narrowed his eyes. "Who was he?" Claire bit her lip. After a long struggle, a few words slipped out. "An engineer. He once gave me a contract, proof of their dirty ties. I don't remember his name clearly, only that he lived in New Jersey. But I'm certain he's not there anymore." Nathaniel nodded, his voice decisive like a command. "That's enough. Even a faint trace is a place to start." Claire flinched, confusion flashing in her eyes. "You don't understand. You don't know who they are. They can break anyone, turn anyone into a liar. I once believed in justice, and that faith destroyed me." Nathaniel leaned forward, his gaze sharp as a blade. "Then make me understand. Because if you stay silent, it means they've won again." Claire's hands clenched, nails digging into her skin until her knuckles whitened. Every instinct screamed, "Walk away, stay quiet, survive." But the threatening note still lay on the table, and across from her, Nathaniel's unwavering eyes held firm. In that moment, Claire realized Her running could not last forever. Late afternoon. Nathaniel had his men track down the address in suburban New Jersey that Claire had mentioned. It was a small house with a gray-tiled roof, tucked into a quiet street. Grass had grown tall over the steps, yellow leaves piled high. The front door was firmly locked, curtains drawn tight. Inside was dark, cold, as if no one had lived there for a long time. In the yard, a few soggy cardboard boxes lay scattered, soaked through with rain, the printed words blurred beyond recognition. A file folder torn halfway, a few photographs ruined by water until nothing remained clear. All of it looked like the hurried traces of someone who had left in panic. The only neighbor, a frail old man with snow-white hair, peeked over the fence, his voice trembling. "The engineer, he's gone. Just a few days ago. Some men in suits came. Their conversation sounded tense. After that, he disappeared. That night, cars drove off, and he never came back." Nathaniel stood silent before the empty house, too timely to be called coincidence. Another witness. Vanished just before he arrived. The next day. Claire sat in the familiar cafe, a morning paper spread before her. On the front page, a headline slashed across in bold letters, striking her chest like a blade. "Claire Donovan, ambitious liar returns." Below it, an old photo of her had been crudely cropped, her half-smile twisted, paired with a venomous article. The former journalist once tied to financial scandal now reappears, seeking a chance to polish her name again. Claire laughed, but the sound caught, breaking in her throat. She shoved the paper toward Nathaniel, her voice bitter and desperate. "See? The moment I show my face, the moment I still exist, they bury me all over again." Nathaniel picked up the paper, turning each page carefully. His expression did not shift. When he folded it back and laid it down, his voice was calm, but his eyes burned bright. "Which means they still fear you. The innocent don't need to strike so soon." Claire bit her lip, her hands trembling. "You don't know him. He can turn anyone into a liar. I once believed in justice, and that belief destroyed me." Nathaniel leaned back in his chair, his eyes never leaving her. "Maybe so, but this time, you're not alone." Claire wanted to protest. For 3 years, she had lived in silence, teaching herself not to lean on anyone. But those words caught at her heart. For the first time, a thin crack in her defenses flickered with a faint light. Not faith, but not pure despair either. In the days that followed, Nathaniel's team worked quietly. They traced the smallest details: a misprinted transfer receipt, a blurred bank log, metadata from emails thought erased forever. Fragment by fragment, a hidden trail began to emerge. Vast sums of money flowed through layers of shell companies, twisted and winding, only to converge in one place: a political fund. In the thick folder, one name appeared again and again, not directly, but enough times to become an unmistakable trace: Lucas Grant, a powerful politician, hailed as the clean future of the city. The man on magazine covers with a bright smile, a trustworthy handshake, speeches filled with promises, and the very same man who had driven Claire Donovan off the map of journalism 3 years ago. Nathaniel set the file down, sliding it toward Claire. His voice was low but resolute. "Here, this is what silenced you. And this is also what will drag him into the light." Claire stared at the stack of papers, her fingers tightening. Fear still lived in her eyes. But for the first time in 3 years, beneath that fear, something else had begun to stir. Hope. That morning, the sky over New York was leaden, clouds so thick they seemed to press the city down. Claire stood by the window of the familiar cafe, her hand clutching the strap of an old handbag. Inside her, everything was tangled like a bundle of scorched wires. 3 years ago, she had walked into boardrooms as a journalist the whole city respected. Today, she was about to walk into a different room, carrying with her a persistent fear and a fragile belief that the truth still had a chance to survive. Nathaniel approached, posture straight, his long coat draped over his shoulders, his gaze determined. He handed her a neatly organized file. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice low and steady. Claire swallowed dryly, pressed her lips together. "Is there such a thing as ready for this?" "No." Nathaniel nodded slightly. "But there are moments when you must choose. Either keep living as a shadow or step into the light and face it. I choose the light. What about you?" Claire inhaled, her hand trembling, but she nodded. "I will not run anymore." The headquarters of the political fund called Future Grant stood in the city center, a gleaming glass and steel block, a symbol of manufactured transparency. Outside, promotional banners hung everywhere, Lucas Grant's face smiling benevolently above the slogan, "A clean city, a bright future." But Claire knew well, that smile had crushed her life. They entered the main hall. The receptionist looked briefly surprised to see Nathaniel Blackwell arrive with a strange woman, but quickly led them to the conference room on the 20th floor, where Lucas Grant was already waiting. The room was large, glass walls opening onto a full view of the city, a long, polished table. Lucas Grant stood at the head of the table in a perfect gray suit, his navy blue tie neat, his face holding the trademark smile, the same smile that had won voters' trust and earned press praise. "Mr. Blackwell." Lucas spread his arms as if greeting an old friend. "What a surprise to have you request a meeting. And this." His gaze flicked to Claire, paused a moment, then feigned to glance past. "Who is she?" Nathaniel did not sit immediately. He placed the file on the table, his voice calm. "The person whose name you have tried to bury for the past 3 years." Claire straightened. Her heart pounded, but her voice rang clear. "I am Claire Donovan, and I will no longer be silent." The smile on Lucas's lips faltered for half a second, but he quickly replaced it with an expression of staged astonishment. He laughed, the sound echoing in the conference room. "Claire Donovan? Ah, that familiar name. But I recall you were exposed for financial misconduct. The press made it clear. I pity you, Nathaniel, if you allow someone like that to affect your career." Nathaniel pulled out a chair and sat, opened the file. He pushed page after page toward Lucas, transfer receipts, email metadata, bank documents. A chain of shell companies, a political fund, and dirty money funneled from shadow corporations straight into your pockets, Lucas. This is the truth Claire uncovered 3 years ago. She was silenced, her name erased, turned into a liar so you could keep wearing the bright future mantle. Lucas clenched his hands on the table but tried to keep his smile. "Do you really think a few papers can topple a politician? That's merely conjecture. Speculation." Claire opened the laptop she had brought and projected it onto the large screen in the room. The original archived data file, PDF saved before deletion, with timestamps and source verification codes. There, the contract signed by a shell company with the grant fund appeared clearly, along with an authenticated signature. Speculation. Claire's voice tightened, her eyes lighting up for the first time in years. "What about this? Your signature. Care to explain?" Lucas's face went pale for an instant. He forced a smile, but sweat beaded at his temple. "Forgery. Technology today can create anything." Nathaniel gave a short, cold laugh, the first in the meeting. "Maybe. But technology cannot make an engineer vanish, cannot erase dozens of articles, cannot make witnesses disappear overnight. That is not forgery, Lucas. That is clearing the path to strangle the truth." The room grew heavy. Claire stepped forward a pace, eyes fixed on Lucas. 3 years ago, you destroyed me. You took my career, my honor, made me a joke. But you forgot one thing. The truth does not stay buried, and today, it has returned. Lucas no longer smiled. Anger flashed across his face, then hardened into ice. He spoke slowly, each word like a hiss between his teeth. You don't know who you're playing with, Claire Donovan. This whole city is in my hands, and I will crush you again if I must. Claire stood straight, her voice oddly calm. You can try, but this time I am not alone. Nathaniel rose, his gaze cold, his voice booming in the room. That's right. And I will make sure that when you fall, everyone will see clearly why. In that moment, the balance shifted. It was no longer a lone journalist versus a vast machine of power. Claire had found an ally, and Lucas Grant knew plainly. The game he thought ended 3 years ago was really just beginning. 1 week later, New York woke to a media earthquake. On the giant screens of Times Square, headlines scrolled nonstop. Future grant fund under money laundering suspicion. Claire Donovan returns. New evidence of financial scandal. Lucas Grant, symbol of purity or two-faced fraud? Everywhere, people whispered. News crews flooded the Blackwell Group headquarters, waiting for more information. Reporters packed outside the doors, cameras flashing relentlessly. In the high-rise office, Claire stood by the glass wall, looking down at the crowd below. Her hand rested on the desk, fingers trembling. 3 years ago, she had dreamed of the day the truth would be exposed. But now that it was here, the old fear crept back, whispering that everything could collapse once more. Nathaniel stepped up, placing a hand on her shoulder. His voice was firm. Don't forget, this time you're not fighting alone. I've sent the entire file to 3 of the biggest law firms. Half of the evidence is stored safely overseas. No matter what Lucas does, he cannot erase the truth again. Claire turned to him. In those gray eyes, she saw the resolve she had long lost, and for the first time, she believed she could lean on someone without fear of betrayal. An emergency hearing was convened at the federal courthouse. Reporters jammed the steps. Security barriers held back the throng. Inside the chamber, the air was thick, heavy, like the storm before it breaks. Lucas Grant entered, still wearing his familiar smile, suit immaculate, stride confident. He sat at the defendant's table, his eyes sliding over Claire with icy contempt. That look seemed to say, I destroyed you once. I can do it again. Claire drew a deep breath. Her heart raced, but when she rose to speak, her voice rang out steady, each word a blade cutting through the veil of lies. 3 years ago, I wrote an investigative series about illicit funds flowing into the future grant fund. Before I could publish all of it, I was attacked. My reputation destroyed. My name smeared. They made the city believe I was a fraud. But I never stayed silent. Today, I return with proof. She handed over the file. On the courtroom screen, each page appeared. Contracts, wire receipts, emails with original timestamps. Murmurs swept through the chamber. Journalists leapt to their feet taking notes, cameras flashing nonstop. Lucas's lawyer rose to object. These documents could easily be fabricated. With today's technology, Nathaniel cut him off, his voice echoing. These are data copies stored across 3 international servers, verified by independent investigators. If necessary, we are ready for full forensic authentication. Noise erupted in the courtroom. Lucas sat frozen, his smile fading. A bead of sweat slid down his forehead. Claire fixed her gaze on him, unblinking. You took my work, my honor, and turned me into a joke to hide the truth. But you forgot one thing. Truth can be buried, but it never dies. Her words tolled like a heavy bell. For a moment silence reigned. Then the chamber erupted in noise. Outside, when the hearing ended, the media exploded. News spread across headlines. Social networks roared. The image of Claire standing before the court, holding the file, became a new emblem. The woman who would not stay silent. Lucas Grant was suspended from all positions. An official investigation launched. Dirty money trails surfaced. Shell companies collapsed under exposure. In the small room behind the court, Claire leaned against the wall, her legs weak. Nathaniel handed her a bottle of water, his gaze warm. "You did it." Claire smiled, a trembling smile but truly her own. "No, we did it. This time, justice is no longer just a hollow word." Outside, police sirens wailed, camera flashes burst like lightning. And after 3 years, New York once again heard the name Claire Donovan. Not as a liar, but as living proof that truth can be buried, yet will always rise again, 3 months after the hearing. New York no longer gleamed with banners bearing Lucas Grant's face. They had been taken down, replaced with posters calling for a re-election. His name, once praised as the clean future, now appeared everywhere in the press, but always beside the word corruption. The final trial ended with a heavy sentence. Lucas Grant was convicted of misusing public funds, laundering money, and silencing witnesses. As police escorted him from the courthouse, swarms of reporters pushed forward, cameras flashing, questions hurled like hailstones. Lucas no longer smiled. The eyes that once knew how to command lenses were now only hollow and furious. Claire watched from the small screen in her apartment, her hand wrapped tight around a hot cup of tea. Part of her wanted to cry, but no tears came. She had run dry long ago. Instead, in her chest, there was only one warm thing: release. The door opened. Nathaniel walked in, tall, steady as always, but today with a trace of relief on his face. "He won't hurt you anymore," Nathaniel said, placing a file on the table. "All the documents have been sealed by the federal authorities. No one can erase the truth again." Claire looked up, smiling tiredly but sincerely. 3 years, and finally, it's clear. I still can't believe I lived to see this day. Nathaniel sat beside her, his voice low but firm. "You didn't just survive, Claire. You won. You took back your voice." An autumn morning, Claire returned to her old newsroom. Former colleagues stared in surprise, some whispering, some shyly reaching to shake her hand. But this time she needed no validation. The name Claire Donovan was back in print, not as a liar, but as one who revealed the truth. Her first article after 3 years bore the headline, "Truth can be buried, but it cannot be killed." The piece spread quickly, not only for its content, but for the signature beneath it, the mark of resilience. That evening, Claire stood on the balcony of her new apartment, gazing at the city lights. Nathaniel stepped up beside her, carrying 2 glasses of wine. He handed one to her, his eyes softening. "We've weathered the storm. Now it's time to begin again." Claire accepted the glass, clinking it gently against his. Her eyes turned to the horizon, where the city lights shimmered like distant stars. "You know, there were times I thought I had lost everything. But then I realized, sometimes when you're pushed to the edge, that's when you find what truly matters." Nathaniel looked at her, a faint smile at the corner of his lips. "And what is that?" Claire turned, her smile trembling but genuine. "Justice, truth, and the people who choose to stay when the whole world turns away." In that moment, no further words were needed. Their eyes met, and Claire knew. This time, she would never have to fight alone. Below, the city carried on, horns, lights, voices. But for Claire Donovan, a new chapter had opened. The chapter of someone who had once fallen, once been erased, but at last had risen, reclaiming everything. And this time, no one could bury the truth again. The story of Claire Donovan closes here, a journey from blazing light to the depths of darkness, then rising again to bring the truth into the open. She proved that justice can be delayed, but it never disappears. Truth can be buried, but it cannot be killed. If this story touched you, share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next stories, where together we search for justice, truth, and the belief that even in darkness, light can rise. And tell us, where in the world are you listening from? Because every story you share, every comment you leave, is a small light that helps keep truth alive.